All right, we're back for part two. So, what is it that gives some people the ability to bounce back no matter what, and other people just crumble? Well, in Job's case, the research says there's a very specific reason, and this is serious research. This is not somebody who decided this is what it is, and then decided to find the facts to support it. No, you can trace Job's resilience back to the root of worship. He was worshiping continually. So he had this relationship with God, this closeness with God, where he knew that he was, whatever happened, was going to be okay. He said, God gives, God takes away. Blessed is the name of the Lord. That's a hard one for a lot of people to understand. But the last several years, 10, 15 years, it's been an explosion in neuroscience, in the study of how the brain works. We've gained so much knowledge in probably the last 10 years that it's more in the last 10 years than the previous 50 years combined. One of the things we know is that there are certain chemicals in the brain that are released by various parts of the brain into the brain, and they are feel-good chemicals. And I do mean they are feel-good. One of them is called dopamine. It is the original feel-good stuff. It ferries information between the neurons, but it ferries them in such a way that we feel good. The brain releases it when we eat food that we really crave. We have sex. We're doing something we just absolutely love. The brain releases dopamine into the system, and we feel good. And it gives you this energy all throughout your body. It boosts your mood. It gives you motivation. It says, yeah, I can do this. It helps with your attention. It helps regulate movement, learning, and emotional responses. Now, there are a number of names for how this presents itself. Sometimes we call it resilience. Resilience is the ability to get up and keep moving every time you get knocked down. Another word for it is grit. People just keep going. Now, for me, people might wonder how in the world I ever got a doctoral degree, because I'm not that smart, I don't think, anyway. But I am stubborn. I am determined. That once I set my goal on something, I am going to accomplish that. And it really doesn't make any difference what obstacle gets in front of me. I will go over, under, around, or through it. I will find a way. That's stubbornness. But in doing so, I feel good. The dopamine is released. I feel good about myself. So this is what happens when you do unexpectedly well on something, or you're doing something you thought you were going to fail and you didn't. You did really well. And that's that flood of, wow, that feels good. Yeah, it does feel good. That's the dopamine. It says that dopamine plays a major role in how we feel pleasure. It's a big part of our unique human ability to think and plan. Now, there are those who look at the past and smile. There are those who look at the past and cry. Same circumstances. There are those who look towards the future and say, what if? And dream. And there are those who look to the future and say, if only. See the difference between the two? The positive thinking. There's a psychology that came out just a few years ago called positive psychology. And it is the psychology of the brain, of the cycle of positive thinking on the brain and on the body. This is what makes us human. As near as I can tell, dolphins don't have a sense of humor. We do. As near as I can tell, grizzly bears can't plan into the future very well. We can. We do. We do it all the time. Otherwise, you'd never build a house. You'd never do anything. Can we plan that the future is going to be exactly as we envision it? No. Welcome back to 2020, folks. Nobody saw this one coming. The whole world's changed. But we didn't anticipate. But the people who are thriving are the ones who have this resilience, who can say, my brain says, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to make something out of this that is positive. So what does worship do on the brain? Well, we've got some instrumentation now that we didn't used to have. One of them is called a functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI. And it shows parts of the brain, and it shows which parts of the brain are getting increased electrical activity when we think about something. And basically, it really improves on what we used to have that could just show where the oxygen was. This shows metabolic changes. And the gentleman's name, Andrew Newberg, is a radiologist. And in a very simple study, he recruited patients from different faith traditions, directed them to spend 12 minutes a day in active prayer and a conversation with God. He created a control group that did nothing. He later tested them all. Well, before they started, he tested them all on this fMRI, and then he did a repeat of it after this time period. And what he found was really quite startling. It shattered, like it says here, it shattered the previously believed myth that the brain could not grow in adulthood. It does. It's creating new connections all the time. And the more you think, the more you challenge it, the more connections it makes, the more new ones it creates. But he found there was a demonstrated change in metabolic activity in certain parts of the brain, and that the hypothalamus, which is a part of the brain, was activated. These people felt better, but they also, their blood pressure went down. Blood pressure causes all kinds of nasty things. I have high blood pressure and I take medicine for it, and I have for a long time. It can kill you. It can cause strokes, cause heart attacks, can pound your kidneys into mush. So yeah, high blood pressure can literally kill you. What he found was that the worship actually lowered blood pressure. There is evidence to say that worship can help you breathe better. That if you have compromised lungs, that worship, attuning yourself to God, will open up those closed capillaries in the lungs, and you will be able to breathe better. You will get more oxygen from the air. Jesus hit it right on the head. Matthew 5:44, and there have been times when I said, "You got to be kidding me, Lord! Really? Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." Oh, come on. I thought this Christian thing was supposed to be everything's going to be cool. Everything's going to be fun. No, not even close. But what Jesus knew that we didn't was it in loving our enemies. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's a great question. I do it this way. I pray for them. I pray that God will heal them and bless them beyond anything they can possibly imagine. I cannot stay angry with an enemy at that point. I can't do it. If I pray that prayer every day for somebody, it's not long before I'm looking at them with totally different eyes. And my blood pressure doesn't go up every time I think about them. It's one of those things that we can do, that we can help control what's going on in our bodies. Jesus said, "Love one another as I have loved you. By this all men will know that you're my disciples, if you love one another." We don't do that very well. Oh, we might do it great at church. We don't do it so great out on the street, do we? Worship also affects what's called the amygdala. The amygdala is where fear comes from, pretty much. Depression, anxiety, all kinds of nasty stuff. What they found is that incorporating prayer with the treatments vastly improved how people felt. 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. What are you afraid of? Everybody's afraid of something. I'm afraid of pain. I just went through 2 major surgeries to get rid of pain, and I am so glad I did, even though it's going to take me a full year to completely heal, because the pain that I felt constantly in my legs is gone. Fear, love casts out fear. So when we look at Job, what happened to him, when we look at modern brain science, we begin to realize that our role as worship leaders is to create a place where healing can occur. That people can meet God up close and personal. Leave everything else behind and find healing. The last story. I was raised to believe that miracles stopped with the death of the last apostles. There were no such thing as miracles anymore. And faith healing was fake, all of it. Well, my mother in her final years had a very, very serious heart condition, and she had a heart valve that wasn't working. And her doctor said, her cardiologist said, we can operate on that, but you won't survive the operation. You're too frail. So my dad began taking her to this meeting at their church where they were doing faith healing. Now, this was not some fly-by-night, give me a lot of money and I'll see that you're healed. No, the guy would never take a penny for any of it. His first name was Ted. I can't remember his last name right now. I've met him several times. And what they did is they followed what's in the book of James. They laid hands on, they anointed with oil, and they prayed for healing. Well, nothing happened. And again, nothing happened. And again, nothing happened. And finally, one morning after they had been to a particularly intense healing session, my mother woke up and said to my dad, "I feel funny. I feel good. I feel better than I have in years." They had an appointment with the cardiologist that day. They went to the cardiologist. He listened to her heart and gets a funny look on his face, says, I want to do an echocardiogram a minute here if we can. It doesn't take but a few minutes and it's painless. I said, okay. So we did. He said, I can't explain it. He says, I have no idea of what has happened here. But that valve that has not functioned in the last 20 years is working perfectly. Miracles do occur. And I think Jesus was pointing to the power that we have within our own minds to heal. So it goes back to that, your faith has healed you. So as worship leaders, we create that space where faith can grow and faith can heal. Does that make a little bit of sense? I hope so. Till next time, guys.